How do I say 10,000?
How do you say 10,000?
What do I say to acknowledge the fact that we hit 10,000?
Say, hey, we hit 10,000?
We hit 10,000. There are 10,000 people who watched some sort of Black Bar video and then decided that they wanted to see more of that. That's kind of hard for us to comprehend, especially considering we've only been doing this for basically a year. I know that's like small potatoes in YouTube land, and 10,000 is still a very small channel, but like 10,000 to me, when I imagine 10,000 people, that's like filling up this room 2 times over. That's a ridiculous amount of people, and we couldn't be more thankful for each and every one of you. To celebrate, I figured we can get a little bit more personal. I sent out the question to you. I asked for your questions, I asked for your hot takes, church media related or otherwise, Black Bar related or otherwise, and I would answer everything that I possibly could to the best of my ability. And you guys gave me some interesting questions, so we'll get started. Tom on our Discord asks, what was your first role at your church and how did you get into what you do now? My first role at my church was the role that I have right now. I'm the multimedia and marketing director at Grand Rapids First in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Technically speaking, that was my first salaried position at a church. Prior to that, though, I worked at a University of Valley Forge, in their marketing department as a graphic designer. And before that, I worked for a company called Woodland Direct. It was an online retailer doing graphic design. I was more of an intern, stuff like that. But every job that I've had since I was 16 was like graphic design or media related in some capacity, one way or the other. There have been a lot of conversations about taking me and making a video series about shoving me into other jobs, since the only experience I have job-wise is media related. And just like making me be like a janitor or like a daycare person for an episode and see how I do. The answer is I would do horrible, and for some reason people would get a kick out of that.
It'd be really fun.
I
want to see you as a daycare worker.
It's not gonna happen. But really, the long and short of it, how I got into it to begin with, I was playing around with Photoshop. I was having a lot of fun. My youth pastor found out about it and asked if I wanted to design a t-shirt. And really, the rest is history after that. Eternal asks, would you recommend churches having a targeted online audience sermon separate from the corporate sermon each week? The idea or concept is to have a more direct message and potential for interaction. Yes, we've had conversations about this in the past, and I think it really depends on the goal or mission or perspective of your church in terms of online ministry. I think there's plenty of churches, especially as we got into the beginning of the COVID season, that got online because they had to retain the audience that they already had. And their online ministry, for the most part, is built to fill that gap until people can get back at the building. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you're looking to actively pursue an online-only audience or engage the internet in a different sort of way, I think that does require creating content that isn't just leftovers. I think it's silly to assume, and I've said this before, that you could just set up a camera in the back of the sanctuary, shorten your services by 10 minutes, and expect people online to come flocking. I think the online space is an entirely unique space and requires entirely online ministry to work effectively. All that being said, if you're one of the churches who really, really wants to get into online ministry and reach new people online, I think doing a service that's much more targeted, much more focused, and aimed specifically at that demographic 100% is going to give you more success with that group. The problem is every church has limited resources and limited time. If that's a priority for your church, yes, I think it's a great avenue to go. If it's not, then that's fine too. You just have other things to think about. There was a podcast episode where we talked about this sort of thing earlier. We'll link it down in the description. We had a bunch of certified pros all together talking about what would an online-only service look like. I'd recommend checking that out. JJ Goodness asks, what video would you count as your favorite/least favorite video that you've published, if you have one? Favorite videos? I don't know if I could pick like an absolute favorite video. I could probably do like a top 3. I could do that. I do think the video we just put out very recently is Facebook Censoring Christian Content is a banger. I think that we put a lot of research into that, a lot of production value, and I'm happy with that one came out. Who's Afraid of Church Online when we discussed the concept of the digital missionary. We went really, really heavy into that. That was for the CRTV conference. Had a lot of fun with that, and I really think it's one of the most important things that we've talked about on the channel so far. Also, it's a deeper cut, but 10 ways to shoot people and make it look good has a skit that's probably my favorite one that we've done so far. I'd recommend checking that one out. Least favorite videos? Man, the rest. No, I'm kidding. Not that they're my least favorite videos by any means, but my background isn't in like OBS and live streaming. I've never live streamed a church in my life. It was something that I learned how to do so that I could teach people how to do it. But it's not something that I'm especially passionate about and especially excited about. And I'll make the videos because I think that they're helpful, but it doesn't necessarily get my gears going. So it's a little tricky because I know that a lot of our audience really enjoys that content and finds a lot of help in there. But also I feel like there's a lot more that we want to talk about, a lot of things that we want to say, and we're kind of like fighting that balance every single video we put out. VetKing95 asks, pirate or ninja? Wizard. Abner Cruz on our Discord has a hot take to talk about. I believe that God works through mediocrity, and due to God moving through mediocrity, some churches have found a comfort zone in media and tech, where they do not progress and keep doing the same things because no matter how good or bad, God still moves. My problem is that as a church, this mentality has caused creative people to leave the church due to underpaid, not treated well, not valuing their work, etc. Not only that, but in my experience, they are the same churches that point up to the bigger churches and make baseless criticism. I've heard everything from that's not worship, it's a concert, why be organized, I work through pressure, and God always moves last second. Good night. That's like 4 things in one, but I'll try to do my best. I think the issue of mediocrity in the church media marketing world is due to a variety of factors. And I don't think it's something I have to prove that exists. I think everybody, for the most part, like if you're looking for the best branding in the world, the best marketing and everything, you're not looking at churches. I mean, even the best of the best of the best are still a couple stages behind where the rest of the world is most of the time. One thing I will say about mediocrity, and something I've been thinking about a long time. A few years back, we brought on a second person into our media and marketing department as kind of like a co-director. Her name was Noemi. She was incredible. She had 30 years in experience at this giant company, multi-million-dollar company as the marketing director. And she was kind of helping us think through more administrative things, more timeline flow, that kind of things, because occasionally we were missing deadlines. So we really wanted to get that down. And she came in, I mean, honestly, she was confident. She had 30 years of experience. She knew what she was doing, and she knew that she could figure out what systems had to be put in place to make things happen at the speed they needed to happen. That confidence disappeared in about 2 weeks when she realized that unlike the corporate world, the church world in media, marketing, and tech and everything moves at a pace that I honestly believe is probably unmatched, at least in any other media marketing world that I've seen. So yeah, a lot of times the quality of the work the media and marketing professionals are putting together doesn't match the outside of the world, but I would bet you anything that we're doing it a heck of a lot faster than they are. And I think when you throw that in, when we're rolling with the punch, when we're designing stuff on Saturday that has to be put up on Sunday, when we could put together a flyer in an hour and get it ready for print, usually that kind of stuff in the corporate world can take weeks, going back and forth between all the different committees and stuff that has to see it. That skill set to be able to do that is impressive. It's very different than what I would say we look to as like excellence, but it is a form of excellence, and I don't think it should be ignored. Now, when it comes to creatives leaving the church as a result of not being able to hit the sort of excellence that they want, or maybe unrealistic expectations on behalf of leadership or whatever, I mean, that's due to a number of factors that we've talked about in quite a few videos and podcasts before, but I think really it comes down to a couple things. Number one, if you're not communicating effectively with your leadership, you are going to become disenfranchised over time. It's just how it works. Unfortunately, it's a bit of an inevitability if you can't figure out how to be honest and open with your leadership, and they can't be honest and open with you about expectations, about how much time and effort every single change, every flyer, every slide actually takes to make happen. If they don't have a scope of that or idea of what they're asking of you, then almost certainly that's going to end in some friction, to say the least. But also I think there's a tendency for a lot of creatives to have that sort of grass is always greener sort of perspective, that the situation that they're in right now is obviously not compatible with their creative energy or creative flow. So the next thing obviously will be more compatible, and that limitation of the timeline or leadership not understanding is really the thing holding them back from creating awesome stuff. Honestly, I think if there's anything I found through Black Bar is that I don't know if I should always be dependent on my profession to be my one and only sole creative outlet and still feel satisfied at the end of the day. There's nothing stopping you from making whatever it is you want to make when you get home. There's nothing stopping you from making ministry-focused media when you get home.
Digital missionary.
This is a conversation that we brushed up against when we were interviewing Nick Goodner on the podcast. We'll also link that one down below. And then the third part of your take about those sorts of churches who have those sorts of problems, throwing a bunch of baseless claims and criticisms about bigger churches and how they do things correctly or incorrectly. I mean, this is not a problem that's exclusive to the church world. Any untrained professional can walk into a movie theater and give an opinion on whether or not they thought that movie was good or not, or whether they like the music or the cinematography or anything. It helps to have a more informed opinion if you've had experience with that sort of thing. But everybody is entitled to their opinion. I think it's slightly different when we get into the church world, because of the unfortunately strangely competitive nature of when it comes to church staff and church members, when they look at not only other churches in the area, but the big dogs all across the world. I'll be honest on this one, because all I can offer is my perspective. I can tell you with Nick here as my witness, I couldn't give a rip what Hillsong or Bethel or Elevation does at any point in the day. I never, ever, ever have gone to Hillsong or Bethel or Elevation or any of the other churches' social media pages or their graphic design things or whatever else it is to find out, oh, I wonder what they're doing today. What Bethel is doing concern you about how to run your church effectively? God ordained your pastor and he commissioned your staff, and that includes you, to reach your people in your community. That community almost certainly is not the same community as any of those other churches. I think it's too easy for us to look at these different churches as different sports teams playing the same sport, right? And those are the professionals, and we're in like we're the B grade or the C grade or the little league or anything. I'm playing a whole different sport. I got different people out here that need a completely different thing to reach them. What do I care? Their strategy for that thing. That's not on me. I'm not saying that you can't learn from those things. I'm not saying that you can't take inspiration from certain places, but golly, it just seems like we are obsessed with the supposed MVPs at the top of this thing, and I'm kind of exhausted of it. It's idol worship is really what it is. And whether people have good opinions about it or bad opinions about it, man, don't you have better things to do? I don't know. That's my hot take for the video. Yeah, I couldn't care less. Last question here from Troy on our Discord server. As the landscape of the church world is changing post-COVID and more churches are already set up with streaming, etc., what does the future of Black Bar look like? So Black Bar was created prior to COVID showing up, and the ideas for it were spawned probably a good 10 years before that point, where Nick and Zach and I were all brainstorming, what does a media ministry actually look like? And the answer that we came up to that question was a media ministry is a ministry for media people. How do we get better media in the church? We make sure that media people are healthy and anointed and focused and equipped to do the work that God has called them to do. So what you can expect from Black Bar in the future, I mean, we're definitely going to continue making videos. We're definitely going to continue making podcasts. But I think what I'm really interested in, and something we've been kind of tossing around a lot internally, is, we've been teaching a lot of people how to fish. Right? We've been teaching a lot of people how to do OBS, how to do Photoshop, how to take pictures on Sunday morning. And I think that's great. I'm much, much more of a fan of that style of teaching than just handing people templates. I think templates are not always bad, but I think a lot of times they're used as a crutch to not excel, to not improve. So I would much rather teach people how to fish. But honestly, it's not even that. That's not even good enough. I'm not interested in giving people fish. I'm not even particularly interested in teaching people how to fish. I want to teach people to love fishing, right? And there's difference there. I want people to see the world of church media and church marketing and church tech, not as a requirement to get ministry done, but as an asset, as a valuable tool to learn and like new ceiling, new heights to be able to reach for and push for. And I think the only way that we could do that is be an example of those sort of heights to aim for, to sort of do some of those weird experimental videos every once in a while, to show you, hey, this is something that we don't see any other churches doing. Maybe this is something you could play with, and maybe you should be thinking about more of these experimental ideas in your work. I think it's high time that the church media, marketing, and tech world got out of the little box that we've locked ourselves into and start really punching above our weight and really showing the world what we can do with these tools when given the resources, the education, and the inspiration to use them effectively. That is going to be all the questions we have for today. Let me know if you liked this kind of video format. It's relatively easy to pull off, and I'm happy to answer questions all day long. So let me know down in the comments if you like that. Also, if you want to be involved in any of these videos that we might do in the future or be able to suggest new videos, our Discord is the place to be. I plug it in every video. If you're not in the Discord now, I don't know what to tell you it's an important place to be. Not just for me. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to have more people in there, but you can get really, really cool relationships and advice and education from other people looking to help each other out. Also, as a final note, we tried to put out a video last week that unfortunately got knocked off the YouTube platform altogether because of some copyright stuff. Instead of editing the whole video down, which would really destroy the whole point of the video, we've uploaded the full version on Vimeo. So if you want to go check that out, where we kind of go over this year's Super Bowl ads and figure out what the church can learn from this year's ads, which most of them kind of sucked, but there were some good ones. I'd go check that one out. Link will be down in the description. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Black Bar. If you haven't already, make sure to check out the Black Bar podcast, released every single week, where we go more into depth into the topics we talk about in these videos. In addition, if you would like to join the Black Bar volunteer team and help make content or help other struggling churches on our Discord, make sure to check out the link in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.